Hello, can everybody hear me? How do I know? I have no visibility to who's on this. Okay, excellent. All righty, well, I see quite a few people are joining, so we'll give it a couple of minutes and wait till everybody is online. All righty, so a very warm welcome to everybody and thanks for joining today. We are here to discuss the Erasmus pre-departure readiness briefing for those Erasmus study exchange students who will be commencing their study exchange in September, October 2023. So my name is Kim O'Flynn Kelly. I'm the Erasmus executive based in the international office, and myself and Jody Blumenfeld, who is the outgoing Erasmus coordinator, and Fiona Roach, who is University of Galway student councillor, together with Cassie Coonahan, who is placement coordinator with DSS, will talk you through this pre-departure briefing, which should last approximately 1 hour, 20 minutes, possibly 5 minutes sooner or later, depending on how we get on. So to give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about today, we have the University Erasmus office. So I'm going to detail our contact information. I'm going to discuss important Erasmus documentation, the completion and submission of the Erasmus grant application form, the Erasmus grant agreement and rates. We'll talk about academic preparation in terms of the learning agreement. We will briefly discuss OLS, which is the online linguistic support, insurance and visas, and then we will have a presentation on emotional readiness by Fiona Keane, and Cassie, who I referred to earlier, will speak on students with disabilities. So basically, if you have a disability, what to do in preparation for your study exchange program and what support can be available to you. So after all of that, we will have a question and answer session at the very end. So please feel free to enter any questions that you have on the chat while I'm speaking. We'll do our best to answer it. If we don't get to it during this session, we'll certainly reply to you in the next coming days. And as I mentioned, we are available at any time by email. So we'll come to that in a moment. So hopefully we'll finish up at about 1 hour, 20 minutes. So make yourselves comfortable. There is a lot of information here. Please don't feel stressed about taking notes. This will all be available on the website through a link, so you can refer to it at any stage. And if you need to take a break or step away, that's not a problem. Alrighty. So in terms of the Erasmus office outbound staff, there's myself, as I mentioned, Kim O'Flynn Kelly, and Jody Blumenfeld, who will look after the outbound Erasmus coordinator. You're probably familiar already with Jody, but Jody is contactable at outgoingerasmus@universityofgalway.ie. So we are both based together with the rest of the Erasmus and mobility teams here in our wonderful prefab at the back of security on Distillery Road, so at the back entrance to the university. In order to give you an overview on Erasmus, we'll just have a quick talk through Erasmus, what it means. Erasmus is the European Community Action Scheme for the mobility of university students. So it's named after the philosopher, theologian, and humanist Erasmus, who lived in 1465 to 1536. Erasmus is the European Union's flagship mobility programme in education and training and was established in 1987. Very proud to say the University of Galway have been involved from the very beginning. The mission of Erasmus is to enhance the quality and reinforce the European dimension of higher education, as well as increasing student mobility. Now, I don't think I need to convince any of you by virtue of the fact you're all set to go, but we fully believe that traveling is still the most intense form of learning. I guess to recap all the benefits before we start getting into more detailed information, what's in it for you? So you are guaranteed to create amazing memories. You will make international friends. You'll improve your language skills and learn a new language. You'll experience other cultures, broaden your horizons, grow as a person and gain valuable skills, and undoubtedly achieve academic benefits such as enhanced employability. Key documentation. So the key documentation are these three critical pieces of documentation that I'm going to refer to here. The Erasmus Outgoing Handbook, 2023-24. So this is going to be your Bible of what you're doing and how to do it. Okay, it's available online on the universityofgalway.ie/Erasmus program /outgoing students /Erasmus links. So please, if they ask one thing, I'd ask that you familiarize yourself with this document and keep it accessible.
Kim, are you able, can you go forward a slide, because we're still on the what's in it for you slide.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if you can familiarize yourself with the Outgoing Handbook and just keep it somewhere handy that you can refer to, because it is a really good reference document. The University of Galway Erasmus grant application form is critical, obviously, because it's your application form to get your Erasmus grant. This needs to be submitted online. So it's an online application via a web link that you'll receive from Jody. And the deadline for this application form to be submitted is June the 9th, 2023 at midnight. So we're going to refer to that quite a few times in this presentation. The third document is your Erasmus grant agreement, which we will discuss in a moment. So basically that's a contract of your grant rates and terms. When completing all documentation, please remember the information you provide will be used to create our database and mailing list. Please write carefully and accurately. Please pay attention to spellings and numbers, especially bank details, and make sure to capitalize proper nouns and punctuate where necessary. The completion of the Erasmus grant application form. So how to complete it. Okay, so you use your name if it appears on your passport. One first name is sufficient unless you normally use two. Do you use your Irish or English name? Well, you choose, pick one and stick with it for all Erasmus paperwork. Just ensure consistency. In terms of your home address, please use a permanent address. Select the dates of your study abroad period using the calendar provided. And we strongly recommend that you gather critical information before you start. So this will be your bank account and sort code in order to receive the grant. So if you have multiple bank accounts, please determine which one you want to receive the grant into. Let us know those account details and maybe make a note yourself so you know which account to expect it into. The dates of your study visit will be required in day, month, and year. If you don't have these to hand, consult your host university website if necessary. To submit your Erasmus grant application form, please submit the form via your University of Galway Office 365 account. Only complete the form once. When you complete the form, you will immediately receive an email like this below, confirming receipt and providing further information. Now, this looks quite a bit small and I can't really blow it up here. But again, if you follow the link on the website, you'll be able to get into the presentation and blow it up to see details of what you can expect. But it basically is just confirmation that your grant application form for the specified period has been received and is being processed. So once again, in case I didn't mention it before, please submit by the deadline, June the 9th, 2023 at midnight. What happens if I miss the deadline? Well, if you miss the deadline, you cannot be considered for an Erasmus grant. You may be approved to study abroad as a zero grant student, but you will not be eligible for an Erasmus grant. So you will continue with your application to your university, you will get confirmation, you will go, but you won't be funded by Erasmus. And we are sorry, but we can't consider any late applications under any circumstances. Now to the most important bit, Erasmus grant, how much and when? So the rates for 2022-23 were 350 per month. Oh, sorry, apologies. Sorry. Apologies. Okay, Erasmus grant agreement. Okay. So this is your Erasmus financial contract. It looks like this. Again, in order to blow it up, just go into the link on the website. It's
Okay, Mike, sorry to
basically,
interrupt again. I think you need to go forward a couple slides. We're still on what happens if there you go. Yeah, perfect.
okay, thanks, Jodie. So I'm on Erasmus grant agreement, right? So yeah, so if you follow the link to the website, you will be able to blow this up. It's basically a statement of your grant agreement in terms of a financial contract, right? So your name, when you're going, and the amount that you will be getting, etc., and that you agree to the terms. So you will be required to insert your bank details on page 1, your insurance details on page 3, and to sign, date, and return it to outgoing Erasmus at universityofgalway.ie. We strongly recommend that you do this without delay in order to receive your Erasmus grant in a timely fashion. So obviously, the sooner you do that, the sooner we can get it processed. Erasmus grant, as I was saying, the really important stuff, how much do you get and when? In 2022-23, the rates for study exchange were 350 per month for Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and Liechtenstein, 300 per month for all other countries. There is an additional grant of 250 available for financially disadvantaged students. So this is called a SISI grant, and this is based on SUSI maintenance grant eligibility. So not all students who qualify for SUSI will qualify for SISI. So please take note of that. It is categorized and it is based on whether you are a SUSI maintenance grant recipient. The main grant installment will be paid at the beginning of the study period, and the remainder of the grant paid after the study period, provided that all the necessary paperwork has been submitted. Now, as I said, the Erasmus grant agreement is a financial contract, and as with any contract, breach of contract can occur. So in terms of the Erasmus grant, a breach of contract occurs when you fail to complete the agreed study program, you fail to complete a minimum of 2 months abroad. If you return home without completing the agreed study period, but have completed 2 months, you will be asked to return a proportion of the grant. Returning home without completing your international year also has implications for your final degree and your fees at University of Galway. So you may have to repeat the year and incur additional fees. Academic preparation. So as part of the process, you are required to make an application to your host university. Again, you need to check the application deadline and adhere to it. So this will be available on your host university website. We urge you to commence arranging accommodation as soon as possible. Apply for on-campus accommodation if that's what you require and if it's available. Again, please be cognizant of the application deadlines. Your host university may require a preliminary learning agreement to support your application. Please liaise with your University of Galway academic coordinator to identify the courses you wish to take and your ECTS requirements. A list of academic coordinators is available at the back of the Erasmus handbook. Language students are advised to take an OLS assessment before departure. So this is not mandatory. It used to be mandatory. It's no longer compulsory, but we strongly recommend that you do it. It gives you completed test, gives access to free online language courses through https://academy.europa.eu courses/learn the basics of 22 languages with the online language support. So it's a really good tool. It's free of charge. You may be asked by some host universities for your test results from OLS. It's not every host university will not ask, but you may be. Either way, it's just a really good language support tool to register with. The learning agreement. So the learning agreement is the academic contract for your Erasmus studies. This states the agreed courses you will take, the ECTS credits you will obtain, and how your studies will be recognised by the University of Galway. It requires approval and sign-off by academic coordinators at both University of Galway and your host university. Your University of Galway Academic Coordinator can help you to identify the correct academic coordinator at your host university. The section called Mobility Period is for changes to your course choice. Changes must be approved by your home university academic coordinator. So basically your University of Galway Academic Coordinator. And again, as mentioned, the list of academic coordinators is available at the back of your outgoing Erasmus handbook. So we've mentioned learning agreements, which are a backbone of your study exchange period and agreement. This is the learning agreement in its original format. Again, it'll be available on our website, and you'll be able to blow it up and just have a better look. We strongly recommend that you use the online learning agreement if possible. And when we say if possible, we mean if it can be accepted by your host university. It is available at www.learning/agreement.eu. Before you complete this, please read pages 14 to 15 of the Erasmus Outgoing Handbook. Your academic coordinator can assist and will be happy to assist with queries regarding the OLA, and other information which may field certain queries is available on our website at universityofgalway.ie/Erasmus-program/outgoing students. Insurance. Private travel insurance is mandatory as part of the Erasmus grant agreement contract. If you have an existing health policy, please check to see what's covered. You need to be covered for personal liability, medical expenses, repatriation, lost or stolen possessions, and disruption to travel plans. The University of Galway website details insurance requirements and also provides a list of insurance providers if you're looking for same. That's available at universityofgalway.ie/Erasmus-program/outgoing students/health insurance. You must hold an EHIC European Health Identification Card if eligible. Please go to www.ehic to see if you are eligible, and if you are, please apply for your card. It's really important. Will you need a visa for your study visit? If you are not an EU citizen, you may need a visa for studies in your destination country. You need to investigate this online, do a Google search, or check with your destination country's embassy in Ireland. And please note this applies to UK citizens who only hold a British passport. Be prepared. Research your host university and the city country where you'll be living. You can do this by going to your host university or the regional tourism websites. Reports from our former students are good, reliable travel guidebooks. We recommend that you download the Erasmus Plus app. So it's a really great app that gives you access to blogs from other students. It allows you to see what other students are in your area. And it's just really a good way to connect and share your mobility journey with students in your region and in your host university. www.justlanded.com, especially the culture section, is also of interest. And again, we would strongly recommend that you consult the Department of Foreign Affairs website at www.dfa.ie/travel/know before you go. This will give you advice on country-specific local laws and safety, and it will allow you to register, as they recommend, your destination location with them. They do ask that you note the contact details of the Irish Embassy or Consulate in your host country. Okay, so getting to the end of my presentation. So just to sum up some items for your to-do list. Arrange your EHIC where eligible and travel insurance. Make sure your passport is valid for at least 6 months after your final return trip. Set up online banking if you don't have it already set up. Consider getting an ISIC. Research accommodation in your destination city or town. And join our Facebook group. So University of Galway Outgoing Erasmus 2023-24. What we'll send you So we will send you a letter of nomination from the University of Galway confirming your Erasmus student status. We'll also send your grant agreement, obviously post receipt of your grant application form before June the 9th, the Erasmus student charter, Erasmus timeline, and the safety advice sheet. So remember, and again, we really need to highlight this, your grant application must be received on time. If it's not received on time, you don't get a grant. And the deadline is June the 9th, 2023 at 12 midnight. So as mentioned, we'll take questions and answers after Cassie has finished her presentation. And next up is Fiona Roach, Student Councillor at the University of Galway. Fiona, do we have you online?
Hi, everybody. Can you see me?
Great.
Hi there. Thanks for that, Kim. That was great. So I'm just wondering, I know you have me here as a panelist. Do I have control over the slides, or does somebody need to
Yeah, I'm just going, if you request control, I will give to you.
Okay, I usually use Teams. Just tell me how to do that.
It is, let me just see, remote control. Is if you go to remote control at the top bar, it's third from the right, and request control. You can just ask me to do slides if you prefer.
No, it'd be good for me to have it because I know I've done it that way before, but it's kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there should be a view option up the top and
Yeah,
a drop down. And if you press request remote control there.
Yeah, I've done that. Thanks, Cassie.
Yeah, so you should have control now.
Okay. So hello, everybody. I must say I feel a little bit jealous of this big opportunity that you're all getting. It's amazing, but there's a lot of bits and bobs, isn't there, that you need to consider, quite, logistical and form filling and being organized and stuff like that. So that for some people can feel a bit stressful. So as Kim said, I'm one of the student councillors here in the university, and today I'm hoping to just support you to be emotionally prepared for what you're going into. But a lot of what I'll do with you today can help you actually to relax into the preparation process as well. So this isn't just for when you're gone. They're both very much linked. So I will just go on to my first slide here. Hopefully it'll work. There we go. So basically it's just coping with travel and new culture and some supports. Okay. So the objectives of my part here with you today is I'm going to talk to you about culture shock and what we call reverse culture shock and what these might feel like, or the symptoms of these. Sorry, it's after skipping a slide on me. So can I go back up? The buttons have disappeared. Oh yeah, they're back. Okay, so then we're going to think about the supports that you will be eligible for, supports that you might be able to, acquire for yourselves independently. Self-support is the key thing. Self-support and being able to name what you need or identify what you might need at any given time. And so ways of managing then how you go about doing this. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about our online support that's available for your well-being. And I'm going to do a little awareness practice with you at the end. And that out of all of those things, you can pull that out of here and just keep that. And I suggest you just put it in your phone, and it's a really great grounding technique. So what I mean by that is a way of just making yourself feel like you're not freaked out, you're not unable to cope. It's about just letting the nervous system take a beat so that then you can start to process and think more clearly. Okay, so moving on. So what's culture shock? Why are we talking about it? I should say as well, I've been sick. I have a cough, so I might have to, pause momentarily here and there. So excuse me in advance. So culture shock is describing the impact of moving from a familiar culture to one which is unfamiliar. Why, what does this have to do, with your emotional readiness? It has a lot to do with it. So we're going to think about that together. So the symptoms can vary And I'm using the word symptom there. It sounds a little bit kind of clinical, but I'm doing it on purpose because we can actually start to feel a bit unwell. I'm not saying this to make you feel scared. I'm saying it so that you can be aware that if you don't feel the way you'd imagined you'd feel when you arrived to this place that you've been dreaming about, it's normal, okay? It's an adjustment period. We'll think about that a bit more. So some of those symptoms can be boredom and feeling unmotivated. We can feel a bit withdrawn. We might spend a lot of time, reading on our phone or reading books or doing things that we do to comfort ourselves, when we're bored at home, like maybe, I don't know, drawing or gaming. You might avoid contact with, say, your host nationals or with your friends or your peers. You might find yourself not wanting to go out. So it's just to notice that, well, God, I'm here and I should be going out, and why amn't I? And we might start, criticizing yourself. But it's to just go, hang on a minute. I wonder, is it just this adjustment period? Okay. Feeling sad and grumpy or isolated and helpless, sleeping a lot or getting very tired. I'm going to talk about the whys of these with you, okay? Irritation over delays and other minor frustrations, particularly delays and minor frustrations that normally wouldn't, have any impact on you, or much less impact at least. Anxiety about how to do things. Becoming overwhelmed with, say, how to figure out the public transport system. You might have some aches and pains. You might be longing to get back home and have this kind of internal, set of mixed feelings going on, that you're like, why am I wanting to go home? I've been wanting to get away from home. I've been looking forward to traveling. Some of us might be longing to go back home because we're actually taking this trip because we really need it for our education, our degree, or because we know that we want to improve our self-confidence. Or we might want to, as Kim said, improve our language skills. We all have very, very different reasons for traveling. And not everyone will be as excited as others either. And just to know that, really honoring your own sense of what it is you need and what you want and why you're there and what you're doing, okay? So then another one is, this is a funny one, unduly criticizing local customs or ways of doing things. I'm sure you've all heard people doing that when they're here in Ireland. And I'm sure if you've been abroad, found yourselves doing it. That actually can be to do with culture shock. So it's just a shock to the whole system, to the whole processing system. Okay, so I'm happy for people to, pop the odd question in the chat here if something's not making sense, because I won't be able to stay around for the Q&A, just to flag that as well. But hopefully I've, or maybe like leave it till the end of my bit, actually might be better, because I think this is quite thorough. So culture shock. Okay, so culture shock is an experience described by people who have traveled abroad to work, live or study, and also on holidays. It can affect anyone, even the most avid traveler, even the person who's absolutely longing to get away from home can find themselves in this kind of mood with culture shock, and it can be really disconcerting and disappointing, okay? It does pass, by the way, okay? So it's not something to, again, be worrying about, it's just to be aware of it. And when we're aware, we're much more able to support ourselves. Okay, so it can be caused by the shock to the senses and to the nervous system of a new environment, right? So what's happening is you've got new people, you've got different culture, like different ways of doing things, different rules, different unspoken rules, that we know them here at home, but we don't necessarily know them in another country. They're not as obvious. This can be caused by the cause of the kind of a shock, like is in a nervous system and processing shock to the system. Okay, so yes, I want it logically, I want it emotionally, but my body needs time to catch up with that. My brain needs time to catch up with this big change. Okay, people you normally talk to at times of uncertainty, for example, for support or guidance, you don't have immediate access to them now. So our familiar routines, are the sights, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, they're absent. You might suddenly find you're missing the home cooking or Supermax or whatever your local pizzeria is. Simple little things. And you might be like, I don't know, in Milan, where they have the best pizza in the world, or Naples, I should probably say for that, right? But it's that's okay, that's normal. Your body misses it. Your body is seeking it out because the body feels safer when we're around familiarity, okay? The mind gets bored. So we can have this internal battle going on. And again, I'm repeating myself, it's normal, it's common. And some people just fly through. This doesn't affect them at all. So comparison is the killer of all joy. Try to avoid comparing yourself to other people. Compare yourself to your norm, okay? And that's something to really think about. Forget the word should. I should be this way. I should be enjoying myself. people feel guilty for not enjoying themselves. Just to really, really think about what you need, okay? And in terms of that, it's thinking about that before you go as well. You know, it's a big decision to go abroad. And some people change their minds, some people come back, but it would be nice for you not to end up, you know, having fees implications, et cetera, like Kim is talking about. So if you're feeling kind of confused or conflicted, it might be worth, you know, trying to get a few counseling sessions or chatting with your, you know, with your support people in your school, okay? So also another thing with culture shock is it's the sounds, sights, smells, or taste. When they're present, it can create discomfort. Some of us are more, you know, a little bit more neurodiverse, so we don't process in the same way, and it can be much more overwhelming and stressful for us. And again, that's just using the slides that are to follow here to support yourself with that, okay? So like, you'll be sent these slides, I presume, Kim, right? You'll have these slides, so they're your resource. So just have them, save them, and then you know you can refer back to them if you need them. You might need them at all, okay? If you notice one of your peers or one of your friends, maybe it seems like they might be going through this, you could have a look at the slides yourself even for them, or suggest that they have a look or look at it together, okay? So just kind of keeping an eye out for each other that way. And then fatigue and jet lag and arrival can really exacerbate that, okay? And so the major cure-all and preventer of jet lag is hydration. Hydration is so important, okay? We're going to think about that a little bit more as we go. These buttons are hiding on me. There we go. Other elements contributing to culture shock would be rules of behavior. So Kim mentioned there earlier, you know, to research the university you're going to, research the norms, but then research the cultural and social norms and rules of the country you're in. A lot of these are subtle. Just know about the laws. You don't have to become an expert, right? But just that you know there might be different rules. This might all sound really obvious, but sometimes it's when we get there we might realize, okay, I didn't know that. I didn't think of that. Certain countries' police forces are much stricter, and like the guards here are actually, people give out about them, they're actually very friendly and approachable in comparison to some other countries. I'm not saying this to scare you, just heads up, okay? Don't make assumptions about what you might be at here. Just observe a bit before you make decisions, okay? Especially if you're out for a night and you're having a few drinks or whatever, just mind yourself. So here we have this W curve, okay? So this is something I found it really, really useful. It's a little bit old-fashioned looking. They call it the, sorry, there's a pop-up here now on my screen, I'll just get rid of it. They call it just the W curve and the stages of adjustment experienced during orientation. So this is specifically designed for students. It's from Australia, you know, students going abroad, et cetera, et cetera. It's from 1990. So somebody might make a fancy version of this and send it to me. I'd be super grateful, but I'm just going to use this for now. So we're here today at our pre-departure briefing, okay? And this can apply to any kind of travel. It's not just for Erasmus, obviously. You're getting excited, you know, we're preparing, we're doing this, you're thinking about it, you're planning, you might be shopping, you know, buying luggage, doing all this fun stuff, exploring where you're going, or you may be nervous, you might not be. Okay, so usually what happens to people when they arrive, initially kind of, there's a kind of, they call it the honeymoon stage, it's just this sense of elation. You're so happy to be there, you've arrived, all that preparation is done. You know, you're in a new place, there's all these opportunities and it can feel great. But what can happen sometimes, and again, this doesn't happen to everyone, but it does usually to one extent or another, is that you can kind of go down, you have like an orientation of where you arrive and you're getting to know everything there. Now what's happening is this sensory stuff that I was talking about, the sights, the smells, the sounds, the music, maybe like if you're a music lover, the music might be like, the local music might not be something you like and things like that. So it's just, but we kind of siphon all that out, we filter it out and we don't realize it's bugging us. So again, it's just, well, where was I? If I'm feeling really overwhelmed, where was I? Who was I with? What were the sights and sounds? Was I comfortable in the place that I was in? And start to try to get to know places that support you and support your nervous system so that you're not struggling that way. I think it's an awful word, really, the disintegration stage. But what that really means is not that you're going to disintegrate. It's that the kind of the way you, your body, your brain, your nervous system, you know, your mind has related to its environment starts to come apart a bit because it's starting to actually take in and drink in all this new information and process it. So in order to integrate into a new place, we need to disintegrate what we're familiar with. Okay, so that's what that's about. And then you start to reintegrate, as I said, coming up there on the middle of the curve there. I hope everyone can see that okay. Now we're moving up into autonomy stage. You're getting into flow. You're really getting to know the place. It's like, okay, I can figure this out. Your system is getting used to it all. Independence stage. And this is, you know, that really like I just know this place really, really well. Hopefully a lot of the goals you set are coming to fruition. If they're not, hopefully you're able to be, you know, patient with yourself about that, or patient with others. The one thing we do know in life is that change happens. And the one thing we know alongside that is that we don't know what that'll be or where it'll be. So it's trying to actually just have an open-minded curiosity, especially when you're in another country. You're going there for adventure, really. So honor that, own that, as opposed to being, oh God, why is this happening? Why is that happening? Whether you're having a good time or a bad time, you're going to be learning. Whether you're having a good time or a bad time, you're adulting. You're moving into a very different phase. So it's important. So if it doesn't all feel great, try not to feed yourself with disappointment in that, okay? Because that will actually just feed that feeling then as well. Look at it as a learning opportunity. Whatever you do, you're going to come back home and you're going to take this with you. So, you know, my grandfather used to say, you know, education is no load. So there is that University of Life piece there. It's really, really important, okay? So now you come home and we've got a similar process. We've got the honeymoon stage. For some of us won't want to come home, yeah? And that's the thing, and to be aware of that. If you don't and you're struggling with coming home, ask for support, okay? Everybody feels differently. Everybody has very different home cultures and home situations, okay? So for some people, the returning home may not feel like a honeymoon at all. It might feel the opposite. But you are coming back to the more familiar, okay? And then we have the same process again. We start to come back down, and we start to, you know, we can come back. And I remember I used to live in New York, and when I'd come home, I'd be like, everything just seemed so weird and foreign, and the smells and everything. And I remember, like, I would be doing that, comparing everything, not necessarily negatively. And it would be weeks and weeks and weeks. And then suddenly I'd realized I'd forgotten. And I was just back to being here in Ireland. And again, that's the disintegration and reintegration stage. Okay. You're going to have that. So you might find yourself feeling homesick for the country you've just left, even though you might have been homesick when you were in it. It's the oddest thing. So just try and, again, like, have a bit of humor about it. Autonomy stage, as well as you're getting back on your feet, and then back into your independence stage. So the same thing again. If you hit bumps in the road and you're struggling with any of that, that's like a flow. But I mean, life doesn't flow always. You get support. Okay. So we're going to think a bit more about that. Okay. So that's the reverse culture shock. Or feeling homesickness for the place you just left. So I'm just going to take a sip of water. Okay. So when we go away, before we go away, we're like, oh, it's going to be amazing where I'm going. It's going to be fabulous. It's going to be great. And then we get there and it's like, oh, people are people. You know, things are things, and stuff happens, you know, and the smells are different, and I like it, or I like this and I don't like that, right? When we're away, then when we're homesick, it's suddenly everything that's good about home takes on this magical quality, and we come back and it's like, what's happened, right? So you're unconsciously expecting total familiarity. So that's your brain, because what you leave behind, your brain goes back expecting that to be there when you come back. But again, change is always happening. We've all changed since we came into this meeting today, because we've gotten new information. And because we're here, everything's changing. That's just nature, right? So coming back, it's like going away in the spring and coming back and expecting, you know, in September, and expecting the cherry blossoms to be in bloom. It's kind of like that. So it's like that with relationships as well. Again, I'm not saying that to scare you or make you worry about that, but it's being aware of it and managing what your expectations, okay? So this idea that we can think that nothing at home has changed, you won't think that logically, but your sensory system, your nervous system, everything I was talking about earlier, will be expecting that. So it can be jolting, okay? So in that sense, you won't be able to just pick up exactly where you left off in certain kind of realms. This can be challenging, right? So when the reality doesn't meet these expectations, we might feel hurt or disappointed, or we may have changed and we might kind of have outgrown certain things or people when we're away. And that can be challenging. So again, there's lots of support there for you around that, okay? So again, home might fall short of what you'd envisioned in all those ways. It's a bit repetitious here as I'm looking at it, and I'm kind of going, okay. So basically, friends and families have their own lives, right? So everyone's changing all the time. And we're always responding to the environment in which we are, right? So by virtue of that, of course, people are going to move in different directions and have different experiences when you're not there. And I suppose the thing to think about is, if that's really frightening to you, to just really, really try and process that before you make huge decisions, okay? You know, and that's, by the same token, it's, you don't want to be stopping yourself from having adventures for fear of losing relationships. The relationships that are solid, they don't flitter away very easily. You know, a year abroad isn't going to break a really true and solid relationship, really. So it's to just kind of watch yourself with that as well, and really, really, you know, reflect on that and have chats about that with people you trust, or with counseling, or, you know, with some of the resources that I'm going to show you. Okay. So that's why home can feel foreign. And yeah, that's the other thing. We don't notice change when we're in it, right? So when you're with your friends and you're doing things, you're changing all the time together. You're growing together. You're learning together. But you don't notice those changes. When you come back, it seems dramatic and big. Okay. So again, it's just, I think I have a question here. I'm just going to have a peek. No, that's to do with something that has nothing to do with me. Okay. Let's see if we can move this slide along. Okay, so some ways to minimize and manage. Like I just said, reflect if possible, talk to someone if you can, you know, questions and answers with a trusted source. I mean by that, like Kim, you may be able to suggest spaces where students can do that, people they can talk to that, you know, might be more practical. A lot of that's here today, right? The Q&A. But if you feel like you haven't gotten the answers you need here today, I'm sure who can they contact, Kim, if they...
They would contact First Protocol, would be their academic coordinator,
Yeah.
or their study abroad officer, who will refer them, or directing student to student services. We're always here in the Erasmus office.
Yeah.
So there's multiple supports, and we will outline that at the end of the presentation.
And like we in counselling have great contact with all of these offices as well. So they, you know, staff you might agree together to, you know, be referred over to us. Somebody might be grand, or do you know? So like, please, you're remember, like, you're a customer of this university. We're here to support you. We're the services. That's what we do. Okay, and no question is stupid. Seriously, oftentimes, like, I haven't asked questions and it was a big mistake. So just ask. We're all, you know, we've all been around the block a few times. We know how awkward it can feel. You know, I remember when I was in university, I didn't know where anything was, including some lectures, because I was too shy to ask. You know, and it's just, then when you get to my age, I won't say how old I am, it's just like, oh, whatever. So we don't take any notice of that. It might seem like a big deal to you, but like, really, 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 like, you are the client. We're here to support you. That's our role. Okay. So that's the kind of feeling, and really listening to your fears, not in the sense that you're collapsing under them and going, oh no, I can't do anything, I'm too scared. But it's sometimes fear is just a bit of excitement, but we get ungrounded and we get a bit overwhelmed. But sometimes fear is actually maybe that I'm just not ready for this. Maybe next year will be better. You know, there's other ways of doing Erasmus as well, right? So just really honor your feelings and don't let yourself be pressurized into doing anything unless you're doing it for yourself. That would be the biggest advice I'd give you. Okay. Now we have, and you may have come across this, some of you, Together All. Okay, I'm going to talk about that first. Together All is it's an international online support community. It's very, very, very safe. It's overseen by, you know, mental health practitioners. It's been rolled out internationally through universities. So it's a fantastic free resource for all students in higher education in Ireland. You just register with your university credentials, and, you know, you go through the process there and see what supports are there. And often, like, there's like chat rooms, but it's not social media. It's very safe. It's very contained. You know, your data is very protected, and people are just finding it really, really great. So I would say to everyone, just check out Together All before you go, you know, before you do anything, because you can do it from your bed. You can do it from anywhere on any device, right? And sign up and start using it. Okay. Silver Cloud, we used to have in the university. It's just a bit more limited, I suppose, than Together All. But Aware is a great organization, a charity in Ireland for depression and anxiety. And Silver Cloud is an online cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, you'd probably have heard of. resource where you sign up again and you engage in different exercises, and then you're assigned a counselor that you might have a chat with. I think it's about once every week or month or something. I'm not quite sure now. It's been a while since I've been working with it here in the uni, but that's also free. And we have an agreement with Aware in Galway, and they're aware that some of our students will use this. Okay, Aware also do great courses like communications courses and things like that. Brilliant if you feel anxious. They're amazing, or depressed. Okay, and you don't have to be anxious or depressed and unable to get out of bed to use these resources. Prevention is the best cure. If you feel off kilter, give yourself something. Nourish yourself, nourish your soul, nourish your mood. Okay, when you feel off, it means you need something. Okay, all right. So we are working on on our webpage. If like Student Counselling and Wellbeing Service webpage is just mortifyingly ancient. There wasn't kind of the time and resources to put anything into that, but thankfully now we are working on that, and that will be launched, sorry, I should say, by September. So for when you go traveling, and I'm working on that myself, and a lot of what I'm trying to put in there, or I'm putting in there, is actually resources as well, and tools that you can use, and hopefully it'll be updated fairly regularly. And obviously that's where you can connect with us as well, with the Student Counselling and Wellbeing Service. So SCWS is Student Counselling and Wellbeing Service. Again, Kim said this already, research the basics before you go, right? But like, I lived in New York back in the 90s, and I'm giving my age away now, but the Irish delis were like, they were home away from home. You go in and you could get the butter and the potatoes and all of this crack, like before people would have to bring them out to us. And in a lot of cities in the world now, you can actually get some of those things. When we go abroad, we want to explore new things, new cultures. But if there's a local Irish pub or Irish centre, it can be really, really good if you're feeling homesick or that bit of culture shock. And there's also this kind of ethos that, if one of your own comes in the door, you give them advice, you help them if they need it. So I wouldn't be saying just go and like hang out with, Irish people all the time. You want to immerse yourself in this new, beautiful culture you're going into, but just check that out, and they can be fun as well, because you get a bit of music from home and, feed your senses and then go back out. But like that, you may have foods that you crave. You may have treats and snacks that you crave. Maybe you might want to bring some of that with you when you go, especially non-perishables. And I, could say I'm like an owl one now saying to bring my Barry's tea bags with me, but I was doing that when I was 19, going to New York, because again, the tastes of home. And you see ads, you see Dinny sausages, like they actually sell it based on the taste of home. There is something very powerful about that for our systems. So lean into that for yourselves, okay, if you can at all. And then research, see if there's suppliers of these foods and drinks too. Food, enjoyment and energizing, mind what you're eating. Try and eat well enough, and that's not you have to eat properly, but your mood is very impacted by food. So maybe even before you go, start noticing what food puts you in a good mood. What food makes you feel tired? What food is hard to digest for you? Noticing what you're at when you're well tells you what helps you when you're not well, okay? So it's a really good practice to do in life in general, but even now before you go, again, if you find your mood goes into that, after a honeymoon phase, you could really, really start to give yourself those things that you need, okay? I've said it here, like bring familiar items, photos, a blanket, aromatherapy oil, it might be a picture of your pet, it might be a teddy bear, whatever, doesn't matter. If it soothes you and makes you feel, bring it if you can, once it's legal, obviously. Okay, so having access to helpline information locally and your local university counselling service. I mean by that, not local here, I mean local where you're going, okay? Obviously, you can reach out to us, but we find mostly that students that get support in the city that they're in, it tends to be better for them, okay, because it can be face-to-face as well. And that, again, for that sensory system I keep mentioning, it can actually really help us feel relaxed when we're sitting in a room with someone who's just kind and solid and there for us, okay? Aromatherapy oils, I don't know if you use them or not, really worth looking into. A little bottle of, like, I don't know, lavender or ylang ylang or rose oil or something like that, just smelling it can actually calm us right down, okay? Do a smell test before you buy it. Some people like stuff, all of our sensory olfactory, that's the smell systems are very different, but aromatherapy is very, very, very useful and not expensive for supporting our mood and our well-being, okay? Like I always put lavender on my clothes getting on a flight because it's antiviral, it repels viruses and bacteria and things like that. So that might be useful too, but don't put on too much because you'll suffocate yourself and everyone else on the plane. Excuse me. What else do I have here? Yeah, just the usual, like when you came to college, any sports or social organizations that interest you, you know, you might find yourself joining a local hurling team or GAA team in certain cities. If that's what you want to do and that keeps you well, you do that, okay? Staying hydrated, I mentioned it earlier, okay? No matter what the climate, it's so important for your mood anyway, like the 2.5 liters a day. But if you're in a hot climate and if you're active, you need to be drinking more water. If you're drinking alcohol, you need to be drinking way more water than you ever would at home if you're in a hot climate. I had a client once who went to Australia and they completely hallucinated. They ended up running out in front of a car. They ended up coming to therapy because they were so horrified at what they did that day. They thought that they thought they were ready to check themselves in somewhere. They were so traumatized. It was dehydration. They were saving their money because bottles of water were too expensive. Seemingly in Australia, it's more expensive and bottles of water are expensive. This person got dehydrated. It could have killed him. Okay, so it's really, really, really important. Your kidneys could go into distress if you're dehydrated, especially if you've been drinking, you know, and of course, you know, watch your intake of alcohol. I'm not here to talk about that, but so yeah, so just being clever, minding your body in those ways, giving it the fuel that it needs. Hydration, I swear to you, I cannot emphasize it enough. And maybe bring some bottles with you, know what I mean? Those keep cups or flask or whatever, so you're not having to buy them abroad because those things could be expensive. If anyone asks you, do you want anything for traveling or a gift, maybe stuff like that could be good. And then you can have a couple of bottles of water with you if you're off out for the day and you don't have to be paying when using plastic and all that. Okay, so your sleep hygiene, I've put a link in here. It's from the HSE. Sleep hygiene, I don't know if you've heard of it. Basically, it refers to approaching bedtime in a way that allows us to sleep well, basically, okay? It's different for everyone. It's good to learn about when we're anxious, our sleep can be affected. So sleep hygiene practices can help pull that back. Also, if you have good sleep, maintain it by using sleep hygiene. Now, some of it's like go to bed at the same time every night. And I know that's not going to happen, but just to have a general sense of it. Again, if you're feeling unwell, you're feeling tired, you're feeling sad or depressed or anxious, check with yourself, what's my sleep? What's my food? Because sometimes it's just actually that we're getting a bit run down. Okay, so that's that with the sleep. And I think there's something else I wanted to say about it. Yeah, so here's a nice piece of information. One of my colleagues is a neuropsychologist. She's amazing. She told me when we sleep, our spinal fluid, when we're lying down to sleep, moves in and actually washes toxins out of our brain. It is so important for us. So important. It's important for our endocrine health, like our hormonal health, for our brain function, for our organs, for everything, for digestion. So, that and the water, just keep it in mind. Alcohol and drug-induced anxiety and low mood. I remember when I was younger, I used to go out quite a bit or do whatever, and then my mood would be down. And I used to know what was wrong with me. I never linked it. It was because I'd be having a few drinks the night before. And when someone told me that I was really annoyed, I was like, that's awful. Because that means then I can't, you know what I mean? And I really had to, this is back like a long time ago as well. But alcohol and drugs can bring down our mood hugely. Okay. So again, whatever you're up to, not that I'm suggesting you take either of those things, but if you are, know this, it can bring your mood down. And for some people, it can bring their mood down really dangerously. Okay. So again, watching each other. I know you've had loads of talks about this, so I'm leaving that there. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to offer, some information. Keeping in touch with loved ones, keeping in touch with home, if that works for you. Sometimes not keeping in touch with home is maybe what you might need. But try not to do that in a way that makes somebody worry about you. You know what I mean? Have an agreement with whoever it is that you're, your family or whoever, what the contact might look like and what kind of space you think you might need. And maybe if they can let you lead it a bit. But if someone's, I don't know, if parent is in any way worrying or whatever, you don't want to have to be minding your parents when you're abroad. And at the same time, you can send a text and say, I'm grand, everything's good. And going to turn off the phone for a while now, I'm going out with the lads or whatever, you know, but try and come to an agreement with that with people and stick to it if you can. And that'll take the pressure off you then as well. But in some cases you might need just might need space. So just say that or whatever. That's completely up to you. Keeping in touch is more about keeping in touch with what nourishes you, what nourishes your mood. Okay. So that's really, really important for self-care. And again, our brain and our nervous system we're hardwired for communication. So if you notice you're isolating and pulling away from people, that actually means you need some contact. You need some contact. Okay. But again, just check in with yourself on that. And then I'm going to say the opposite. Don't overdo the contact. If you're constantly calling home and constantly trying to say maintain these relationships at home because you're scared that they'll maybe lose their quality over time, you can end up just basically being in another country but stuck to home all the time, and you will dilute your experience of this new culture if you do that. Okay, so again, be aware of that. Don't need to overdo the contact. It's not your job to mind other people in the sense that you're actually impacting on your own experience negatively or preventing yourself from fledging the nest a bit. Okay, and that can be hard. It can be very hard. So then exercise, music, yoga is very calming. That's why I put yoga in there. I'm not suggesting it as a particular exercise. It's exercise, but it's also really good for your mental health. Really, really good for your mental health, because the stretching releases tension, and the tension actually leaving the body lightens the mood. It also makes us more flexible. It makes us more flexible in our thinking. And we learn about how to manage our breath and practice breath practices. And when we're aware of our breath, we can actually start to regulate what's happening in our body, okay, around anxiety particularly. And that meditation and mindfulness, the same. We have Mindful Way in the universities, free online sessions, I think 2 mornings a week at about 8 o'clock, Mindful Way. Mindfulness literally just refers to noticing what's happening right now. And that's what I keep saying to you, just try and be aware of how you're feeling. If you notice you're feeling a bit, take a moment, reflect, go, what's going on for me? Like journaling is great for that. But what am I actually feeling? I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling happy. You can feel all of those things at once. Okay. And that's totally normal. We can be conflicted inside ourselves. That's just being human. Okay. But what we tend to do is push things aside. And when we keep pushing certain aspects of ourselves aside, we can get really anxious. So I think people tend to think that anxiety is some sort of an illness or a failure. It's actually your very wise self saying, hang on a minute, I need this. And it might be water. It might be food. It might be a hug. It might be intimacy. It might be time alone. It might be time in nature. It might be a swim. You know inside yourself what you need, and you don't need anybody else's approval for that. Okay. Just keep yourself safe. So here's a great video. I recommend this to Kim and Jodie and Cassie as well. I don't know if you've ever come across Dan Siegel, but I'm a really big fan. He's a neuropsychologist. He's a professor in Stanford University, and he's really simplified neuropsychology. Himself and his colleagues have done amazing research on the nervous system and the brain and the links to mood. Okay. This is something he actually designed for parents to support little children with meltdowns, but it's fantastic for adults. Okay. I don't think time's going to allow me to kind of go into more detail on that, but he explains it wonderfully. And if any of you is interested in that kind of stuff, Dan Siegel has stuff all over YouTube. He's amazing. Okay. But that's something, if you watch it at least once before you go, and then maybe put the instructions, and they're very simple, into your phone, and then you kind of have it somewhere. Okay. You might have like an emergency card in your pocket. I don't know. But yeah, it's a great video. I just love it. It just takes this incredibly intricate science and makes it digestible for everybody. Okay, here's a sleep meditation. You may have heard of Deepak Chopra. I don't know, some people kind of go, oh, he's a bit of a Hollywood guru type of a guy. But this meditation, I remember being in hospital and being extremely ill, and it was like the most chaotic, loud, horrible hospital ward I was ever in my life. I couldn't sleep. And I needed to sleep to get well. I couldn't listen to music, which normally I'd love. I couldn't even, every sound was like, I felt like I was going to die from the sound. And I found this sleep meditation, and it helped me get to sleep. So I just share that with everyone. It's only 3 or 4 minutes long. And the practice that's in it introduces you to the idea of noticing what your breath is doing. And there may be people here in the audience who've met me before in my office or whatever. And one of the things I do with people straight away is, and you can do it now, is notice, what is my breath doing right now? See, I just took a deeper breath there because I noticed I was speaking maybe a bit too fast, hopefully not. And I'm going to, okay, once we start to notice what our breath is doing and bring our attention to it, our blood pressure, our heart rate start to regulate. Imagine that. Because what we're doing is we're bringing our thoughts to the awareness of our breath, and our thoughts start to follow, just noticing the physical sensation of what our breath is doing. And straight away, we're gone out of that fight flight because we're thinking about something that's not full of thought, full of words. We're noticing what's happening in our body. So I say, keep it simple or go simple. Yeah. We don't need apps and techniques and big spiels of things we have to try and remember when we're having a panic attack on a subway in New York City. You know what I mean? It's your breath is always in your body. As long as you're alive, you have your breath. Just come back to the breath, come back to the breath, come back to the breath. And I took about 2 years to remember that. I had a reminder in my phone going off every hour. Now when I'm stressed, I just think of it and I regulate. Before I couldn't do public speaking, for example. There's no way I could have sat here. So it doesn't have to be complicated and a huge burden of time to mind yourself. Okay. You guys have way too much fun to be having, to be, sitting around trying to learn stuff. Okay. So this, I've just put in really simple links for you here. When to seek help. Okay. So if none of the above is helping and you're just not helping enough, you're just not feeling good. If difficult feelings are ongoing or they're just too much to hold in the moment, that breath practice, sometimes it's not enough. Yeah. When those types of practices aren't helping me, I go get help. I dip in and out of therapy. It's just like, for me, it's like brushing my teeth. But that's very easy because I'm a therapist. That's just, my training involved that. So I don't see it as anything other than self-care. I actually love it, having someone who just wants to listen to me. It's great, right? But sometimes we don't click with our counselors, and then we might need to change, because sometimes it's all very relational, So don't hesitate to try and get that kind of help. Don't wait till you're feeling really, really, really bad to kind of then, because people can think, oh no, I'm not bad enough to warrant counseling. Sometimes people come in, they have one session and everything's fine. The same person could wait a year and everything could be a disaster because it builds up. So do reach out, guys, okay? If you can't see things changing as well as another one and you start to feel like, no, there's not, what's the point? Really, please do talk to someone, okay? Difficult feelings worsening. As I said already, no need to wait too long. Where to go for help? So your peers and your friends, if this is an option, sometimes it isn't, okay? Same thing with family. Only if it's safe. If you have people in your life that say, oh, you're crazy or you shouldn't feel like that, don't confide in them. Nobody has the right to tell you shouldn't feel something. You feel what you feel, what you feel. That's like saying it shouldn't rain. Okay? That's just a catchphrase people can use, and it can be a real silencer. Nobody, and I would say we shouldn't even use the word should. I only use the word should to tell people that they shouldn't say should, because it's judgy and it's pressure inducing and it makes people go silent. And we don't need to be silenced when we're feeling depressed or down or anxious or worried. We need to be heard. Okay? If you think it's too much, someone's wanting to disclose something to you that you feel it's something you're not able for, you can say that really lovingly and say, let's go back and look at the slides from that one from counseling and let's see what we can find. Okay? So try not to take on too much. Every single feeling we have is simply that. It's a feeling and it's valid. Okay? Should I feel this way? No, I shouldn't feel this way. I just feel this way. Okay? And that's a real cultural shift that we need in Ireland. We need to stop justifying how we feel. You feel what you feel, what you feel. Okay? That doesn't mean you get to lay around the place and expect the whole world to dance around you. That's where personal accountability and responsibility, or the ability to respond, comes into play. Seeking help is being responsible. We're human. We're a pack animal, just like wolves, just the way dogs love humans. They need that contact because they need to be in a pack to kind of have a sense of themselves. So if we're abroad and we're feeling homesick and isolated and our mood is going downhill, they're red flags. Okay? So please do take this seriously. And as well, if you notice someone's withdrawing, Don't force yourself on them. Be respectful, have boundaries, but maybe just say, is everything okay? I'm noticing we're not seeing much of you. Sometimes what we can do is when we're not seeing much of a friend, we take it personally. We start speculating that they're annoyed with us or something, you know, and then we go, what's his problem? He hasn't contacted me. So it's just trying to be balanced about it, okay? There's always more going on for people. This very wise woman, my friend's mom, she always says, you never know what part of the shoe is pinching somebody's foot. I thought it was brilliant. Just, okay? So anyway, I feel like I'm lecturing now, so I'm going to move on. That's our email address, okay? You can always email us. That is not a problem. But we do advise you to try local counselling first because you're there, okay? Especially if you're really distressed, because they will help to keep you okay. And the other thing then is, again, to reiterate the and I keep, it's terrible, Together All. There's so many different things that you can look at. Together All is great as well. I would say sign up for that today. Just have that done. Familiarize yourselves with it and use it, okay? And there should be information going in and out of that over the course of the year as well. It's being handed to me to use, so to deal with. I have to learn it all yet, so I'm not sure of the ins and the outs of it. That again is just the silver cloud that I mentioned. There's a link there, okay? And what else do we have here? So prevention is the best remedy. So there you go. There's your Together All. I'm ahead of myself, but it really, really is. Just if you're noticing you're a bit off, just as Dan Siegel would say, name it, tame it. Okay. Once it's out of our mouths or it's in our journal or we've spoken to someone about it, it changes its quality. We can see it more clearly. Okay. And that's why talking helps. Or for some people, it's writing or writing music. But it might be dancing, some form of expression. Doesn't have to be in words necessarily, but contact with another human being is important, or maybe an animal. For some people it's birds, it's trees. You know, we're never actually alone. We may not have humans around us that we feel safe with, but we also have the kind of other than human spaces we can lean into. But there's your Together All link. Remember, this is all part of the learning. Kim said there, I think the most intense learning experience of your life is travel. I'd agree. So it's all part of it. So whether it's right or it's wrong, you learn and you mature and you have a choice at every step. You move away from or towards self-care, and you choose to let disappointment collapse you, or you choose to kind of get curious about it and kind of go, okay, isn't it? That's can I be interested in what's just happened here? In some instances, you just need to stop and step out. Okay, but before you go, really do reflect on your needs and how you think you're going to be, and talk to us all about it if you need to. Okay, if you're not sure and you have any questions, don't put yourself through that without really having the space to unpack your thoughts and your feelings around it. It's always okay to change your mind. Okay, but better do that before you go than after you go. All right, and no one's going to judge you for that, and if they do, it's mind them. Right, you've got to look after you. Okay, and one of the things I've said here is that you're going to really learn what you love about home, and you're also going to get some perspective on what's not so good, because we all have little problems that we need to resolve. So space away is fantastic for us. And then I just like, this is just something so this is around mindfulness. When we're aware of how we are, what we're feeling, that like I've been talking about, then we have the power to meet ourselves there. Might sound a bit weird, but what I mean is, okay, everyone else is happy and I'm miserable, right? And I'm actually acknowledging that now. So what do I need? And then you hear a little voice inside yourself. Try and listen to that quieter voice, because there's wisdom there in all of us, okay? It's not about what other people tell you should be doing, ever, okay? So that's me. That's my spiel. I hope that was helpful. Does anybody have any questions? Oh yeah, sorry, I just gave you their 30-second awareness exercise. So using the breath, like I talked about earlier, you can add to that. And so you take a breath, you breathe, and you notice 5 things you can touch. Breathe again. I think we've gone backwards.
Oops, sorry.
It's okay, it doesn't matter anyway. It's the 5 primary senses, yeah? So what you can hear, see, taste, smell, that can be really good to calm as well. But like, you can do that sitting on a bus. You know, you don't have to go out into the wilderness to do that. You can do that when you're taking a shower. You can do it anywhere, anytime, okay? What's my breath doing right now? And oftentimes when we're feeling really freaked out, you can touch something or touch yourself. You put your hand on your heart. Can I hear the birds? What's the furthest away sound? What's the closest sound? Just do it now. Can I see? Notice what your breath is doing. Taste, you may have just had lunch. It's just, again, just acknowledging there's a sense of taste there. And what am I noticing through my nose? And just breathe. And just note to yourself, what did that feel like? Might feel silly for some of you, it might feel okay. But it's portable. We don't need a nap. You know, we can't always have our phone with us. So take your breath with you and go gently, okay? So any questions I'm happy to answer? I don't see anything coming in the chat. Kim is gone.
No, I'm back. How do
Oh, your camera's off, yeah.
is my camera off? Wait,
I'll
okay,
hand you
one
back.
minute. Sorry, let me just get in here. I can,
I've just given
there
up
we
remote
go.
control.
all righty. Thank you. First of all, a huge thank you, Fiona. That was absolutely amazing. It's so helpful and insightful. And I personally am really interested that culture shock can affect even the most seasoned of travelers. And I think that's really good for us all to know that you may think you've traveled and you're prepared, and then you're just landed sideways.
Yeah.
I love your advice to drink water, because, you know,
Yeah.
probably most of us don't do enough of that. Personally, I look forward to using the sleep meditation, and I really like the fact that you emphasized the power of therapy and don't wait. So
Yeah.
we're going to put this link on the website, and I think it'll be really valuable for students to, as you say, refer to it time and time again, refer to it for themselves, refer to it for their friends.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. And we look forward to Together All, and we'll watch that space with interest. So thank you.
Great. And for our webpage as well, you know, hopefully it'll be good, but like Together All links will be in there. So we'll always, you know, I mean, we're very busy in student counselling, and it's kind of going to be up to me to keep it alive. So, you know, there may be no changes for weeks, but if any exciting new initiatives come or tools come or whatever, we'll put them there. But we're hoping to get more and more help with that as well, because I think this is the main thing at the moment. You know, we've got all this kind of fake news, and is information reliable or not? If it's on the Student Counselling and Wellbeing website, it's come through us. It's come through your university.
Validated.
It's validated. So, and then don't worry about anything else. You know, you don't need too much. Remember,
exactly. It's a direct link.
And your body.
Thank you.
Your body has needs: water, air, light, movement, food, touch, and breath. And so when you feel down, check on all those things in your sleep. Stop there first. And a few little tweaks can just make you fine again. And again, if things aren't helping, you know where to go. Okay.
Certainly do. Listen, thank you so much, Fiona. Very grateful. Take care.
You're welcome. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Have a great time, everybody.
Thank you.
So
next up, we have Cassie Coonahan. So Cassie is the Placement Planning Coordinator with DSS. So Cassie, let me just hand over remote. Oh, you have control. Okay, great.
Thanks very much, Kim. Yeah, I think I've control there. Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for listening. So I'll go very quickly because I know this may not be relevant for everybody, but what I do have to say, I suppose, is in keeping with the theme of today insofar as doing your research in advance and kind of knowing what to expect will enable you to best prepare for a successful and enjoyable study abroad in Erasmus. So my name is Cassie, as Kim said, and I work at the DSS, and part of my role is Placement Planning Coordinator. So I regularly meet with students who may be going on a work placement or an Erasmus or a study abroad, just to discuss any needs that they may have while abroad or on placements. And we really have a chat about disclosure and sharing information about a disability, an ongoing physical or mental health condition, or any specific learning difficulty that they might have with the host university or an employer. So I suppose, as I said, in keeping with today, preparing to study abroad, and really the work that you do in advance and the research that you do in advance will help you have a successful and indeed an inclusive work, or I'm used to talking about work placements, Erasmus experience, especially if you may have additional needs or considerations before going abroad. So one of the main considerations for yourself, if you do have a disability, is to know that it's your responsibility to disclose that disability to relevant parties. So when we say relevant parties, we mean the Erasmus office or indeed your host university. So your host university will not be aware that you have a disability unless you inform them. And that's your responsibility and your right to do so. So registering for support in host university is a completely separate process to enrolling as a student over there. So you may be registered with the DSS, the University of Galway, but that registration does not automatically follow you with the equivalent support service in your host university. Also, it's important to be aware that the reasonable accommodations and the supports that you receive in the University of Galway or that you avail of, they may be different in your host university. So it's about finding out beforehand in advance what the supports might look like when you're abroad. In terms of additional funding, there is additional funding for students with disabilities. Now, the additional funding may be available to offset the additional costs associated or involved in completing an Erasmus study period. So if you have additional costs as a result of a disability while you're abroad, you may be eligible for additional funding. So that might be something like if you had if you needed to transport accessible equipment or accessible accommodation and there was costs associated with that, you may be eligible for funding. So if you think that might be something that's relevant to you, I do suggest contacting the international office. And as we said, no question, all questions are welcome. So it's worth making an inquiry if you think that's relevant to you. Understanding your own personal requirements and knowing yourself and what you need and what you currently avail of. So I do recommend that if you are registered with the Disability Support Service, and if you are, you will have a LENS report. So I recommend that you have a read through that LENS report. So after this, look through the LENS report, look and see what are the existing supports and accommodations that are listed on that LENS report and that you currently avail of. So it might be something to do with exams. You might have an alternative exam venue, or you might avail of extra time in an exam. Are any of these non-negotiable? Is there any of them that if for some reason you did not have in your host university, would it make participating in university life difficult for you? So you may not receive the same accommodations in your host university, and different universities will have different levels of support. So it's important to anticipate in advance and indeed know in advance what the accommodations you might receive in your host university if you are registering with the equivalent of the Disability Support Service over there. If you don't or can't get those supports, can you adapt, or are there any alternative strategies to address them? So it's just about knowing in advance. Also, now this may apply to anybody, even regardless if you're registered with the Disability Support Service. If you have medication requirements, it's important to know before you go or be prepared in advance for, you may get monthly scripts, you might be abroad for a number of months, you may need to make arrangements before you go to extend prescriptions or anything like that. So you don't want to find yourself in a case of where you're abroad and you don't have access to your necessary medication. Sorry now. So your host university research and preparation. As I said, registering for disability support in your host university is a separate process to enrolling as a student there. So you might need to do a bit of research. I'm sure you've done a lot of Googling so far in your host university, finding out what's the equivalent service over there. Now, the chances are it won't be called Disability Support Service. They may call it something different. They may use different language around it. And if you do have trouble or difficulty finding what the equivalent service is, you can reach out to myself or the international officer, Kim, or whoever, and we can help you find out what the equivalent service is. In terms of registering for support over there, again, different universities will have different or require different documentation or a different process for registering. So knowing in advance what you might need. So some may request proof of a disability. You may need a letter from a consultant. So you don't want to be over there and it's an adjustment, and the adjustment period will be big enough while you're over there without having to try and gather this documentation. So if you can do that well in advance, and the key thing is to register for support before you go and have all that in place. Know what the reasonable accommodations will be for yourself before you go. Have identified a disability contact link over there. Somebody who you can reach out to. So the equivalent of your disability advisor over there, somebody that you can email if something happens, especially while you're over there. If you need support, it'll be that person who will be your first port of call. They will be the person who will know what might apply in that university or what supports can help you at that time. I know Fiona talked about kind of local support. So identify what supports are available in your host university. So at the moment, you know, there's GP, you have access to a GP, counselling, the student health unit here in the University of Galway. See what are the equivalent services in your host university, so that if it does come a time when you need them, that you know what they are in advance. And also then we talked there, Kim mentioned this already, identifying or knowing who your course contact is in advance, your academic coordinator in advance, so you can reach out to them if you do have issues while you're abroad. So in terms of the next steps, on the DSS website, we have loads of supports if you are studying abroad, or, you know, if you do want more information, or the student testimonials up there. What we do have, and I recommend everybody does it if you're registered with the DSS and going abroad, is to complete the pre-departure checklist. It'll only take literally 2 minutes. It's a tick box exercise, but it may prompt something or some considerations that you haven't already thought of. And it's a good idea then to kind of get the ball rolling on certain documentation if you need it. If you've completed that checklist after today, even if you have any other questions, I meet students all the time for placement planning or Erasmus planning meetings, just for a chat about the support you might need, any reasonable accommodations, conversations about disclosure. That's no problem at all. I know it's coming to the end of term now, so you know we can do an online meeting, even a phone call. If you log on to the website, you can book the meeting there, or the link is here on this slide as well, and I'm sure Kim will share it as well. But thanks very much for listening, and enjoy it. Have a great time. As you know, it's an amazing time, and hopefully everyone will enjoy it. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Cassie. Let me just get back to my.
Yeah, I'll give up control there.
Okay, let me just get back to my. All righty, back to okay, can you see? Sorry. Okay, so how do I get back the video control here? Yeah. Okay. Can everybody see me?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, Cassie, I'd just like to thank you. That was absolutely amazing. Again, I'd like to reiterate, I think they're really super important points, that funding is available for additional expenses incurred as a result of your disability. Contact the international office. I think it's really critical, as you said, check if your medications are available in your host destination, and register for disability support at your host university and know what supports are available. So Cassie, it's been really helpful. I'm going to put the link on the website, and that will contain your address and our information. And thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Kim.
Now, everybody, I just want to wish you all a wonderful study abroad experience. We've kept you for 2 minutes over an hour and 20, so not too much later than promised. 3 at the stage, I think. I just want to know if we have any questions. I'm going to have a look at the Q&A here. But if anybody, okay, so as a student with dyspraxia, am I eligible for the Erasmus grant? Can we fill out the financial form for the Erasmus grant before securing our travel insurance? Okay.
Do you want to answer that live? Because I was typing my answers to all the questions.
Oh, sorry. No, I'll let you answer, Jody.
Can we fill out the financial form for the Erasmus grant before securing our travel insurance? By financial form, if you mean the Erasmus grant agreement, then no, you need to enter your insurance information into the grant agreement. The grant agreement is invalid without your insurance information, and the grant agreement isn't due until before you leave on Erasmus. If you're talking about the Erasmus grant application form, the online form, that you fill out to apply for the Erasmus grant, you do not need your travel insurance sorted before you apply for the Erasmus grant. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, then send me an email. Can you clarify the difference with grant application and grant agreement? Yes, the grant application is an online Microsoft Office form that you're going to fill out. It's about 30 something questions long. It's really straightforward. It's going to take you about 15 minutes. It's questions like, what's your name? What's your date of birth? Where are you going on Erasmus? What's your bank account number? Stuff like that. And it will, it's very short form. After you fill out the grant application form, I will send you the grant agreement form, and that's the financial contract that you have. It's between you and the University of Galway, and that's what you need to put your insurance information in. You're going to enter your bank details again, just so we know we've got the correct information. I'm not too sure about the OLS. Do we have to hop on a call with our academic coordinator in order to fill it out? The OLS, it's the online language assessment that used to be mandatory for language students that are going on Erasmus. It's no longer mandatory, but it is recommended because you will get kind of an official assessment of your language level, and you'll get access to online language courses that could be really beneficial. So we've got a link to the website where you can sign up to take the OLS. And there's the link is in our handbook, which you can access through our website. And if you can't find it, send me an email and I can send that to you. If you just have dyslexia, would you have a chance in getting the disability grant? It depends. The grant or the supplemental funding for students with disabilities, it's really kind of to support students who have a disability as such where without extra funding, they really wouldn't be able to go on Erasmus. But any specific questions, send me an email. I can send you the application form for this extra funding and explain it in detail. Should I keep going here?
Yeah.
I was told by my academic coordinator that having a European health insurance card is enough if I'm going to study in an EU country and I'm an EU citizen. The EHIC doesn't cover you for all eventualities, and the University of Galway made it a university-wide policy that students have to take out a private travel insurance policy before going abroad. So if you're eligible for the EHIC, you're supposed to have an EHIC, but you also, all University of Galway students must take out a private travel insurance before they go. It is the University of Galway policy, and there's nothing we can do about it. So you do need to enter your insurance information in your grant agreement. The grant agreement is invalid without it, and you won't get an Erasmus grant without this information on your grant agreement. And a private travel insurance is really a good idea. The EHIC will not cover you for all possible things that could go wrong. So it's good to have private travel insurance. In terms of the learning contract, does signing off mean physically getting the academic coordinators to sign it? The learning agreement, we recommend that you do the online learning agreement, and the link to that is on our website. If you can't find it, send me an email. That is signed digitally, it's signed online. So you don't need to walk around with a piece of paper and actually get someone to sign it. Unfortunately, not all host universities are accepting the OLA, the online learning agreement. In that case, we do have the older kind of Word-based document on our website that you can download. But even that document, you might be able to insert a digital signature. So it depends on your academic coordinator here in Galway and your academic coordinator at your host university, because those are the two people who will sign the learning agreement. Sorry, I meant OLA. Okay, learning agreement. Great. I hope I answered that question. Where can I go when I know the questions I need to ask? This has all been helpful. It is very overwhelming. Send me an email, outgoingerasmus@universityofgalway.ie. I answer that inbox, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. If you're confused about the documents, there are a lot of documents. And sometimes the wording when we're talking about Erasmus grant application, Erasmus grant agreement, learning agreement, all of that, it can get very confusing, and we're very aware of that. But send me an email. Also, our website lists all the required documents that you need and how to go about filling them out. So do have a careful look at our website and our handbook. When reapplying for the SUSI grant include with studying abroad? Yes. And I'm not quite too sure what questions are involved when you're applying for SUSI, because I don't see SUSI applications. But if you are studying abroad for the year, then yes, you should include that information in your SUSI application. Kim is answering the next question about travel insurance. Who should we contact if one of our academic coordinators is not replying to emails? Send me an email. Sometimes I could poke them for you and get a quick response. What's the mobility assessment? The mobility assessment is, we used to call it the risk assessment, and it was introduced kind of after the COVID pandemic, but it's a document that kind of you fill out in conjunction with your academic coordinator with your college. And it kind of lists, it's kind of a form that, you know, where you kind of acknowledge that there are risks involved with traveling. But there's a link on the university's website. Off the top of my head, I don't know it, but I can send it to you if you want to send me an email. But contact either your college study abroad coordinator or mobility officer or your academic coordinator, and they can point you towards the right direction for the mobility assessment. Deadline for the learning agreement. If they don't take online version, where do we get the physical copies? I've answered that. We have it on our website. Send me an email if you need the link for that. Advantages of registering DFA as an Irish citizen. Also, I guess the embassy and the government have a record of, they know who is away. You know, if you're in a foreign country and if something, you know, terrible happens, Ireland wants to know where you are and how, you know, if they have to get you back. So it is a good idea. If you're an Irish citizen, please register with the DFA. Do you need to follow up the OLA once submitted to ensure? Yes, because the OLA, you fill out some details. It has to be signed by you, your academic coordinator here in Galway, and your academic coordinator at your host university. It's pretty much a document that lists all the modules, the courses you're taking at your host university, how many credits you're getting towards your degree program here in Galway. And once it's signed, it's kind of, you know, proof that yes, the courses you're taking abroad have been approved. You're going to get credit for the courses you're taking, and Galway will accept those. So yeah, you do need to follow up and make sure that it's been signed and accepted by everyone. If I want to apply for the Erasmus grant now, do I switch? No, I will send you a link for the Erasmus grant application shortly after today. It's due June 9th by midnight, but I'm going to send you a link for the application form. And again, it's going to be really quick. It'll take you about 15 minutes to fill out. That was a very rapid fire answer to your questions. And I see Kim still typing some answers to questions about insurance. But again, if you've got any questions at all, send me an email, outgoing Erasmus, all one word, outgoingerasmus@universityofgalway.ie. I'll do my best to answer your questions. You've all been sent a PDF copy of our handbook. So please have a careful read through the handbook, have a careful read through our website, because the whole process is discussed there. But yeah, anything else, send me an email and I'll do my best to answer. Did I get them all? I think.
Super. I think
Sissy and Susie. Well, yeah, that's kind of confusing. The Sissy is kind of, it's the top up grant for students who are in receipt of SUSI. I'm not really sure how SUSI is paid to students, because we don't pay out SUSI, but students who are in receipt of SUSI at a certain maintenance level are eligible for kind of this top up funding, and you get that in addition to the monthly Erasmus grant. Are we receiving the grant application soon? Yeah, I'll give you a link to that very soon. Grant application agreement due, not the application. The Erasmus grant agreement will be due before you leave to go on Erasmus, and hopefully you'll fill it out and sign it and send it to me shortly after I send that to you. I haven't sent them out yet. You'll get them after the deadline for the grant has closed. So I'll be sending them out probably late June, early July, and then there's not a lot of information you need to put into them. You need to add your name, your bank details, put in your insurance information, and sign and date it. But that needs to be sent to me before you leave. You have your own individual OLA. double degree students in our set modules yet. Send me an email about that, or that might be something that your academic coordinator might need to answer. But each individual student needs to fill out their own OLA. And if that didn't actually answer your question, send me an email if I'm misunderstanding. I think we're at time now. Yeah. So any other questions?
So Jody, thank you so much. You are, as always, a font of knowledge on everything to do without going Erasmus, and thanks so much for all those very informative responses. Guys, we will continue to look at your questions. As Jody said, you have our email address. If you have queries, please let us know and we'll get back to you. We will get the link to this presentation up on our Erasmus website tomorrow. And, you know, I would suggest you, as somebody said, there is a lot of information. It's a bit of an overload here. So, you know, I suggest that you go through it again, you know, once or twice, because there's a huge amount of very informative and helpful information contained within here. So I'd really like to thank you for your time. You've given up a huge amount of your time today. I hope it was helpful. Again, I'd like to thank Fiona, Cassie and Jody, and I'd like to wish you all the best time ahead. It is going to be one of the best time of your lives. I've done it many, many years ago. It changes your life. You come back dreaming in a different language. I can't say enough about it. Enjoy and take care, and let us know if you have any further questions by email. Okay, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.